We want to take the power of quantum, make it accessible to everyone just as easily and efficiently as possible.
Welcome everyone to UpTech Report. Our episode today is sponsored by Terraleap. Learn how to leverage the power of video at terraleap.io. I'm super psyched to be able to chat with William Hurley, also known as Hurley, based in Austin, Texas, author of the upcoming book, Data Not Drama, but also Quantum Computing for Babies. Let's see that book.
Yes.
Okay, look at that. There we go. Quantum Computing for Babies, the one and only, and CEO of Strangeworks. Welcome, William. It's great to have you, man.
Hey, thanks for having me.
So Strangeworks is a platform for quantum computing. On your site, you say, brings the power of multiple quantum computers into a single platform accessible to everyone.
Yeah, so a lot of people don't know, but the history of Strangeworks, we actually started out trying to get a bunch of people to work together in quantum computing as an open source project, and it didn't work. And we'd already put so much effort into it. We're like, well, screw it. We'll just start a company and do it ourselves. Basically what we want to do is we want to take the power of quantum, make it accessible to everyone just as easily and efficiently as possible. I believe that quantum computing will change computing as we know it more in the next 10 years than computing has changed in the last 100. And because of that, I think it needs to be, evenly distributed and somewhat democratized and et cetera, et cetera. And so what we've done is a weird thing for a startup, right? We got investment. Instead of being like, here's a product we charge people for, we're like, here's all the free community stuff we do and all the other stuff, which, raises some eyebrows for sure. But we have other plans for the money stuff too. But that's not where we're at in the evolution of the technology. So like right now is the time to be collaborating, building community, working together. So that's really kind of our bailiwick and our kind of position in the market.
So basically anyone wanting to be involved in quantum computing, whether they are right now or this is kind of a platform that they could test and learn, collaborate while they're solving and sharing answers effectively.
Absolutely. I mean, we could even, happy to show your audience at some point if you'd like to too. But basically, yeah, so there's multiple community efforts we sponsored. Some of this are efforts in the EU or in Asia or wherever with communities. The two most notable would be our Stack Overflow partnership, where we created quantumcomputing.stackexchange.com, which is 4,000 questions strong now. 85% of them answered relatively quick, with over almost 11,000 people now in the community. I think it's like 10,600 or something like that. And then there's quantumcomputing.com, which is powered by Strangeworks software, which is the platform you just described, which essentially is every simulator you could want already hosted as a scalable microservice, and then access to all the machines you could want, et cetera, et cetera. There's paywalls as you get closer and closer to the hardware because we don't own that. But you can do so much work without that hardware. You can come and take experiments from the library and clone them and mess with them and learn quantum computing, and you can build your own intellectual property, et cetera, et cetera. So again, just trying to get people involved. And for your audience, it'd be for every audience I talk to, which is, I don't care whose tools you use. I don't care what company you use, if you're an enterprise, whatever. I do care that you get involved in this because it's the first real shift from von Neumann architecture. It's the first real shift into a new era of computing for us as a species. So it's pretty important, I think.
Now, taking a step back, I mean, quantum computing, one could say, okay, quantum computers don't even really quite exist exactly. I mean, they do, but in testing grounds. So why do you have a whole platform when it's not even out in publicly?
So that's a great question. So think about it. So let's go back to 20s. You got the fifth Solvay conference, quantum mechanics comes into being. 55 years between them and Feynman and Benioff in 1982, thinking about using the spin of a particle as a bit, as a way to calculate. Then, you go another 7 years, I think, maybe it's 12, MIT gets 7 qubits. And then you go another 6 years, maybe there's 12 qubits. So given that, what you just said is a perfect statement that makes sense. However, if you then go to 2017, we went from 17 to 28 to 50 to 72 to 128, right? All in a period of 2017 to 2019. And then this year, IBM announced their roadmap. So they're going to be by over 100 qubits next year, over 400 qubits in 2022, and over 1,000 qubits in 2023. And so, and you've got other manufacturers, right? Some of the photonics people are, ion trap people, right? They're saying they'll have a 1 million qubit machine in 5 years, right? So if you look at the compression of the schedule as an entrepreneur, you look at the investment that's going into the area, you look at all of that stuff. I don't think this is a 20-year away thing. I think it's more like a 2 or 3 year away thing. And when you look at the complexity of it, go back to the beginning of computing, you had to be an electrical engineer to program a computer because you had to understand the actual flow of electricity between the gates. Right now, you pretty much have to be a physicist, right? We're getting away from that really fast. But so you're not talking about something you're going to go learn in 3 months and have a job in 6. You're probably going to spend a year messing around with it. And then there's opportunities, that are going to start coming up in the next 2 or 3 years. So now is the time to get involved. And I can't make predictions. I'm not Nostradamus. One discovery in noise control, one discovery in how we, suspend these particles, be it by lasers or cooling them down or whatever, and everything could be 4,000 qubits overnight, right? Like we know how to add qubits is not the problem. It's things like noise in the system and other things like that. And
so it's just a matter of time.
And so so I always tell people, when will quantum computing arrive and affect your life? Someday between tomorrow and some tomorrow in the not too distant future, and nobody knows when. And I'm telling you, if you're a software developer and you're not looking at it, you'll be unprepared. If you're a data scientist, you're not looking at it, you'll be unprepared. If you're an enterprise and you already aren't coming up with like how you're going to at least react to quantum, if you're not making those proactive investments, there's going to be some big shifts in multiple industries.
Wow. Now, on your website, you say your mission is to humanizing quantum.
Yes.
by setting standards, fostering community, improving continuously, and partnering for growth. So what's really like the roadmap then?
Yeah. So we started when we started the company with the IEEE, with the standards effort. So PAR 1730 and 1731. One is on nomenclature, because we say qubit, and it's so easy to say qubit. You see videos on YouTube, qubit. Okay, well, is it logical? Is it physical? Is it a topological qubit? Is it a annealer? Or maybe it's an ion trap or superconducting? And what does that mean? What are the differences? I mean, qubits aren't like bits. They're not all the same. Like when we say a bit at this point, we've got enough standards and enough definition. We know what a bit is across every computing device we have. Qubits, not necessarily that situation. The second one's on performance benchmarking. So we started those. We're also working with the ISO and several other standards bodies to just try to foster them. We're not trying to control them. We don't care. But if we just all get together and agree on things that we don't have to rebuild 100 times, it might speed the industry, definitions that would make it easier to communicate outside of the industry, things like that. Those are important. That's in combination with that community effort, right? And Stack Overflow and quantumcomputing.com are 2 major efforts there that we spend most of our time on. And of course, that leads to what do you partner on? Well, now that we have this big open platform, and we have thousands, if not tens of thousands of developers around it, then the hardware manufacturers are much more likely to want to expose their hardware through it. And that's what we say. We say partnering for growth. It's like, look, there's going to be software stuff that does very specific things that we may need to make available to people. And the platform we built allows us to make any hardware or any software in quantum or exotic computing in general. So neuromorphic, amorphic, DNA-based stuff like that, available to people to experiment with and use and integrate in their workflows and their daily job.
I love the mindset that now is the time to be testing, creating, and developing the potential use cases and stuff, even on your own site. So for those that want to learn more, definitely go to quantumcomputing.com to be able to already sign up and look at it. Easy one to remember if you can spell quantum. And qubit, teleport the qubit. You actually have a couple like test things that you can try. Curious, like when you click on the button and you press teleport the qubit, like what was the mindset with creating those?
So that's on Strangeworks.com on the new website we just released. And what it is it's a way for you to try to run a quantum experiment as easy as possible. And so how much easier can you get other than here's a couple sentences about the experiment, the actual code for you to look at, you hit a button, then we can run it in the simulator, right? And so we're going to actually be doing something really cool with that in January that I can't say, but the idea is to show how much you could reduce it, right? So you want to lower the barrier to entry. Now, that doesn't mean we made a click on a website. Now you don't need to be a physicist or you don't need to have any programming. But the idea is we could do a lot better job as an industry, as a community, in communicating how this works and why it's important and what it is, and not making it scary physics, right? Like, oh no, if you don't have a PhD in physics, you can never do it. And it's like, look, a PhD in physics would be a tremendous advantage, but so is being an electrical engineer, in the 20s and 30s, and now you can go to like Full Sail or wherever and become a software developer, a lot easier, right? Because over the years there's abstraction layers and simplification and refactoring and all of these things. And all of that I predict is exactly what will happen with quantum computing. And so therefore, taking a communal approach and getting everybody to focus not on competing for dollars, because there are not a lot of dollars in quantum computing, but work together to build an industry. And then at some point in the future, they can all compete or join forces or do a roll up or whatever they want. But it's funny because you summed it up. You said it doesn't really exist. Well, that's not true. There are machines available today from Rigetti and IBM and others that you can access online today. IonQ, I believe, has theirs on Amazon bracket. So if you have an Amazon AWS account, you can access theirs via that. You can access Rigetti's via that as well, I think. There's a lot of things you can do. But these still aren't computers. I still think we're mainly in the world of simulation right now for most of the work you want to do, because what these are is they're really, really good lab equipment for exploring the quantum risk. And that's the way I tend to look at it. That's the way I think of that.
I appreciate that frame of reference. Great lab equipment to explore and test the future of where quantum computing will go. I thank you so much, William, for sharing this, bringing the future to us when it comes to quantum computing. I definitely stick around for those that want to hear more about William's history and his insights and learning of starting new companies. It's not your first one, I know that. So there's a lot of insight you can share. So stick around for part 2 of our interview with William. Thanks, everyone, for joining us.
Have you seen a company using AI, machine learning, or other technology to transform the way we live, work, and do business? Go to uptechreport.com and let us know.